Happy Friday, everyone. It is good to be with you again. This is Pastor Nat with your 5 minutes in the Bible to help you win the day. Whatever it is you're going through today, there is a way to push through it with excellence. So to help you do that, today we're going to talk about the benefit of submission. Submit. What comes to mind when I say the word submit? If you're like most of us, this word brings a sense of unease and probably some negative thoughts when it comes to marriage and family. My question is, should it? The answer? It might surprise you. So let's turn back to Ephesians 5, as Paul will bring much clarity to an often misunderstood and abused passage from the Bible. And further, submit to one another out of reverence for Christ. For wives, this means submit to your husbands as to the Lord. For a husband is the head of his wife, as Christ is the head of the church. He is the Savior of his body, the church. As the church submits to Christ, so you wives should submit to your husbands in everything. Now, please, don't shut off this podcast, okay? We need to talk about this. This is important. Now, it's true, this passage is about marriage. But even if you're not married or never want to be, there is something here for us all. I promise you, just listen. You see, Paul here, he is continuing a teaching about living as children of the light. He says that there is a way that Christians should think and behave. There are ways that we should not think and behave as well. That's what Paul is teaching. But then he turns right away to conduct of marriage. He says, submit to one another out of reverence for Christ. You see, most people, what they do is they focus on verse 22, which says, wives, submit to your husbands. The Bible does teach this. That's true. But we forget what Paul also said. He said, husbands, submit to your wives. Wives, do the same to your husband. You see, submit does not mean to be a doormat. It does not mean be a rubber stamp to the whims and decisions of your spouse. It's better for us to think of it as deferment. It means to trust and to follow. It's actually a military term. You see, God, He is the God of design and order. We see this in the universe. We see it in the world. We see it in the church. And you better believe we see it in a relationship between servants and masters. And then, of course, we see it here in the relationship between parents and children and husbands and wives. You know, as an employee, I have no problem submitting to a boss that I trust. As a child, I have no problem submitting to a parent if I trust them. If a husband is following God, it makes it a lot easier to trust and defer. As a godly husband, it's easy to defer to a wife who is godly. We have to remember, marriage is a partnership. It's a team. It means deferring to strengths and weaknesses. It's ultimately about trusting God, trusting each other, and trusting the outcomes that God desires. Today, my challenge for you is to trust and submit, to defer. If you're married, find one practical way to communicate that you trust and that you will demonstrate that trust. If you're single, if you're employed, find one way to communicate that kind of trust and then demonstrate it. If you're a child at home, find a way to show that you trust your authority in your life and then demonstrate it today. Christ is over the church. He's over your family and He is over you. When Christ is in His proper place, we all can trust and obey. I'd love to have you share your thoughts and your response as you wrestle through this passage today. Comment below and let's talk together.